What's up everybody, back with another Honkai Star Rail video. In this video we are going to talk about Honkai Star Rail's endgame and things that I don't like about it or would change. And before we get into the video, I just want to say I don't mind Honkai Star Rail's endgame at all. I think it's rather fun for the most part, but there are a couple of things about it that are bothersome and a bit excessive to an extent, especially when we bring up one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, because it's in literally every single piece of endgame in this game except for one technically. But whereas that, let's talk about the endgame modes. So the first one and the most popular is Memory of Chaos, and Memory of Chaos is kind of the testing grounds for most units. There is a buff for every MOC, but most people just are like, whatever, let's just bring the unit into MOC anyway and just, have a fun time. Now, the thing with MOC that's so great and why I think it is my favorite endgame mode is because there's the buff, there's the enemies, there's the team, built a team, hit Memory of Chaos, and bam, I'm in the fight instantly, no waiting, which is why I'm not a huge fan of the simulated universe game modes. While they're fun, if I want to test out a team, do I really want to slog through a 10 to 20 minute dungeon getting buffs that make my units not realistic, right? Like, any character can look good. There's so many clips of the level 1 Wealth, level 1 Bailu, level 1 Jeopard, level 1 Ting Yun runs, but it's just the buffs doing the work, right? It's not really the units themselves, it's just the buffs, right? That's why I'm not a huge fan of the whole like dungeon crawl-esque mode in this. Like, it's fun, don't get me wrong, but for showing a unit's potential or just wanting to use said unit, it is, buffing and giving them stuff that they don't normally have, or it's just taking a while, right? Which, why I don't like them. They're endgame modes, yeah, but you clear them and then you only go back when you're really desperate for Jade, let's be honest, right? Then there's Pure Fiction. While Pure Fiction is fun and it gets you into the fight right away, it also has the unfortunate circumstance of favoring characters and making other characters quite literally unrunnable, right? If you want to actually beat the events, you're not running Jeopard. If you want to actually beat the events, you're not running someone like Yanqing. If you want to beat the events, you're not running someone like Clara, unless you get lucky. You're not running Silverwolf, and it kind of restricts characters, right? Now, while Memory of Chaos definitely favors the single target characters, ones that do a lot of damage to one enemy, you can still get by using like any character. Like, I use Yanqing, I use the Clara that's like barely built. That was just to say Clara's really good, but like mine's not good, right? And I still use it. I use Himiko, I use Jeopard. I can use any character I want as long as they're somewhat built, they get it done, right? Which is like I like MOC. It's still challenging, but you can still use whoever you want and clear it. Pure Fiction, not so much. You have to just kill the enemies fast enough, and unfortunately, if you're a single target character, you just don't cut it in that game mode. It's still fun, but it's limiting, and I just want a game mode where I can just use a character and have fun. And here brings the next thing up: buffs. Now, there are other modes where you can use your characters in fights. There's currently two, which is the Boulder League, or I'm forgetting the actual name of it, the Boulder Town Super League. There's the Martial Exposition and the Point Ranking. These still have buffs. The enemies aren't super strong either, so they die pretty quickly. And then there's Tales of the Fantastic, which I actually forgot that I have never fully finished the event, but there's a lot of buffs there, and the enemies aren't super crazy in there either. So both of the fighting events are kind of just like whatever, right? There was a fighting event that was in the Herta Space Station. I believe it was, let me open up the map real quick. It was around this area, and it let you fight the Deer, Kafka, Yanqing, Bronya, Jeopard, and Kokolia. And while that one did have trials and buffs, the buffs helped, but the fight was still hard, right? And then they also had like an extreme mode, and I'm gonna be honest, that fight was a little too hard for my liking. I actually struggled quite a bit, and I just said whatever, I'll just clear it and come back, and then I never actually came back to it, unfortunately. But those fights were fun, right? So it was just fighting really hard, boom, you get in, have a good time, lose, good to go, right? Which I was a fan of, but it still had buffs, and that really made me think about the fact that every single endgame mode or fighting event has a buff to go with it. The only mode that I could think of that isn't just like farming calyxes is Echo of War. And I'm gonna be honest with you, not a lot of people really care about showcasing a unit on these modes, right? Or really using units. Because one, it takes energy to do it, and you can only do it 3 times a week. Plus, you can technically bring trial characters in the form of friends characters. Like if you have a bunch of E6 friends like I do, I'll just be like, okay, I'm fighting the bug, E6 Jingaloo, I'm fighting this guy, E6 Zayla, I'm fighting, well, you know, her, E6 Don Hang, fighting this one, you know, Zayla again. It doesn't really like showcase your units as you can just bring a really OP friend. So in like when you really think about it, there's no end game mode that you can't either bring a trial character slash friend character to, or isn't skewing what your character's gonna do with buffs. Like I don't have a huge issue with the buffs. Like this is whatever. It makes Dr. Ratio look a lot better than he normally is. He's really good still regardless. But we don't have a mode where it's just bring your characters and fight. Like the normal story of the game has hard enemies. Not impossible enemies, obviously, you can still clear it, but they don't have enemies that give you like a bunch of buffs. You just fight them. But they're never hard enough to really warrant, like, you also can't refight them, which is another like shame, right? Like you can fight them in Echo War, but then you can just bring friend units, right? And it kind of sucks. I don't know why we haven't gotten a endgame mode, or yeah, endgame, where you just use your units. And another thing is, I wouldn't mind Memory of Chaos if we could like fight the past Memory of Chaoses. I'd be down for that, right? Because if I want to use Kafka right now, she's not that good in MOC right now because, well, the overall buff up here like works for her. The enemies are not something you'd bring lightning against, right? Or like Jing Yun. And if I want to go to this one has the 65 enemies, so it's not realistic to bring them. And then this one also has a bit of a buff, and it's also, you know, if I want to bring a fire character, right? Like let's say MOC this week, fire is just not it, right? These enemies aren't weak to fire, so then you're just screwed, right? Like also this is, well, they're level 90. There also is buffs on it that help you win, which is another one of my issues. It's just weird, man. Like I feel like we need more endgame content like MOC because pure fiction, while fun, it's just I have its issues. Just build the right units and have AoE units, and then you should do good. And it kind of alienates a good chunk of the game, which is why, you know, MOC kind of does that. And I was like, oh, AoE units need a time to shine, but not to where it makes it to where if you want to run any unit, you just can't because you just won't win. That bothers me a lot. I'm not a huge fan of that. I want to use the units that I pull. I'm going to use the units that I build. But when you're restricted to being like, oh, hey, you better build Himiko or Herda, you're going to have a rough time with Perfection. It's like, all right, cool, you know. Like, I'm a Yanqing main, you know. I guess screw me, I guess, you know. I'm just not a fan of that. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of the endgame modes. Do you think they're pretty good? Do you think they definitely need some buffs? Do you think we need a new endgame mode without any buff system going in? Do you think we need more events that we can refight that are hard? Let me know in the comments, and of course, I'll catch y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching.